Very shocked, hurt, angry, embarrassed.
Yo, this is the kind of story families pray never gets out. Because what you're about to hear isn't just celebrity gossip, it's years of silence, pressure, and a truth that was buried so deep, even the people closest to it refused to say it out loud. For a long time, Deyjah Harris stayed quiet. No interviews, no messy headlines, no public breakdowns. But now, something changed. And when she finally spoke, it wasn't just emotional, it was uncomfortable. Because behind the fame, behind the image, behind the perfect family narrative, there's a side of this story that doesn't match what the world has been told. A side that allegedly involves tension, control, and moments that left scars no one ever addressed publicly. And it gets worse. Because this isn't just about her. This connects directly to King Harris, his behavior, his rebellion, and the question everyone's been asking. What really happened inside that household? Now fans are divided. Some are defending, others are digging, but one thing is clear. This isn't the story people thought it was. And if even half of what's being hinted at is true, then everything we thought we knew might be completely wrong.
I mean, honestly, I'm embarrassed, definitely, for sure. I'm trying to, push it in the back of my mind, so I'm really not.
For years, the image looked perfect. A successful father, a famous family, a lifestyle most people could only dream of. But behind that image, there were cracks. Small at first, almost invisible, until they weren't anymore. Because according to what's now being discussed online, the tension inside this household didn't just appear overnight. It built slowly, quietly, moment by moment, year by year. And at the center of it all was a silence that lasted far too long. Deyjah Harris was never the loud one. She wasn't the one going viral for arguments or clashing publicly. Instead, she watched, she observed, and most importantly, she stayed quiet. But silence doesn't mean peace. Because while the world focused on headlines, another story was unfolding in the background, one that didn't make it to the cameras. A story of pressure, expectations, and a constant need to maintain an image. And then there's King Harris, the one the internet labeled out of control. The one people criticized, mocked, and questioned over and over again. But what if that behavior wasn't random? What if it was a reaction? Because the more clips surfaced, the more incidents went viral, the more one question kept coming back. What was really going on behind the scenes? There were moments, public ones, that gave people a glimpse. Arguments that didn't feel normal. Tension that didn't look staged. Energy that felt real. Too real. And every time something like that happened, the narrative stayed the same.
But I've been doing that since a child, even with stuff with
I know,
him.
but it needs to not be something that you get accustomed to doing.
I typically don't handle problematic issues head on. I tend to hope that issues just go away.
Everything is fine. But now that narrative is starting to crack. Because when Deyjah finally started speaking, even carefully, even indirectly, people noticed something different. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Measured, controlled, but heavy. Like someone choosing their words very carefully, because they know how much those words actually carry. And then came the statements that really caught attention. Hints about things not being what they seemed. About reality being different from the image. Not loud accusations, not dramatic claims, but enough to make people stop and listen. Because sometimes, it's not the words themselves, it's what they're pointing to. And suddenly, everything started connecting.
That he goes to the gynecologist with you to make sure that you're still a virgin?
Yeah, he goes with me. It's definitely been going on since probably 14 or 15.
Okay.
King's behavior, the public clashes, the frustration that kept showing up again and again. It didn't feel isolated anymore. It felt like pieces of the same story. A story where one person acted out while another stayed silent. Until now. Because breaking silence, especially after years, is never random. It usually means one thing. Something reached a point where it couldn't stay hidden anymore. And that's exactly why this moment matters. Not because of drama, not because of headlines, but because for the first time, it feels like the version of the story the public believed might not be the full story at all. And if that's true, then the question isn't just what happened. The real question is, how much of it has been hidden this entire time?
They let him come in there.
Yeah, it's not like I could have said no. I couldn't have said no.
It would be totally different if this was King. If this was
Absolutely.
any of your brothers, it'd probably be like,
It's praise.
and I wonder why is it like that? Like men, they praise their little boys to have sex.
Getting it.
But girls,
For real.
it's like they threaten to cut you off. They threaten to. Why can't you be?
Because once people started paying attention, the details became harder to ignore. Not the loud moments, those were already out there, but the subtle ones, the pauses, the expressions, the way certain things were said, and the things that were never said at all. That's where the real story started to unfold. And suddenly, what once looked like isolated incidents began to feel connected. Because when you go back and really look at everything, the tension wasn't hidden. It was visible, just not fully understood. There were moments where conversations didn't feel like conversations. They felt like control. Moments where reactions didn't match the situation. They felt deeper. And moments where silence said more than words ever could. That's what people are starting to notice now, especially when it comes to Deyjah Harris.
Here to be around him right now. I'll be a better parent. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad parent. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, like, when it comes to stuff like this, like, I'm just gonna be more connected mentally, emotionally, all of that. So, I don't know. I don't want to.
Because when someone like her, who's known for staying out of chaos, finally begins to speak, even carefully, it changes everything. And what's making this even more intense is what she's not saying directly. Because instead of accusations, there are implications. Instead of details, there are fragments. And those fragments, they're enough to shift the entire narrative. Because now people aren't just watching clips. They're analyzing them, frame by frame, word by word, trying to understand what was really happening beneath the surface. And then there's King Harris again. Because his behavior, the rebellion, the anger, the constant pushback, it's being looked at differently now.
It's okay to cry. It is. We're not gonna judge you. We're your cousin. You know you're a human being. It's okay to be emotional.
Not just as acting out, but as something that may have come from somewhere deeper, something unresolved. Because patterns don't come from nowhere. They come from environments, from experiences, from things that build up over time until they finally explode. And when you place that next to Deyjah's words, or even her tone, it starts to paint a picture that feels uncomfortable. Because if even part of this is true, then what people saw publicly was only the surface. And what was happening privately was something else entirely, something more complicated, something heavier, and maybe even something that explains everything. But here's where it gets even more complicated, because not everyone agrees. Some people believe this is being overanalyzed, that moments are being taken out of context, that a family, like any other, has ups and downs, and that the internet is simply doing what it always does, turning pain into content. But others, they're not so sure, because to them, this doesn't feel random. It feels consistent, like a pattern that's been visible for years, but only now being questioned. And that's what makes this situation so divided, because it sits right in that uncomfortable space between what's seen and what's suspected, between public image and private reality. And the truth is, no one outside that family knows the full story, but that hasn't stopped people from asking questions. And those questions, they're getting louder, more direct, more uncomfortable, because once a narrative starts to shift, it's almost impossible to stop it. And right now, it's shifting fast, which brings us to the moment everyone is waiting for. Not another clip, not another reaction, but something clearer, something undeniable. Because until that happens, this story stays exactly where it is, in that space between silence and whatever truth might still be coming next. And this is where everything reaches its peak. Because by now, this isn't just speculation anymore. It's a conversation, a growing, uncomfortable, unavoidable conversation that refuses to go away. Because the more people revisit the past, the more they listen closely, the more one realization keeps surfacing. Something about this story doesn't sit right. Not completely. Not anymore. And at the center of it all is still Deyjah Harris. Because what makes this moment different isn't just that she spoke. It's when she chose to speak. After years of silence. After years of watching narratives form without her input. And now, even without saying everything directly, she's changed the direction of the entire conversation. Because sometimes clarity doesn't come from loud statements. It comes from quiet ones delivered at the right time. And that's exactly what this feels like. A shift. A turning point. Where the audience is no longer just watching. They're questioning. Re-evaluating. Replaying everything they thought they understood. And then there's King Harris. Because his role in all of this suddenly feels different too. What once looked like rebellion now looks layered. What once felt chaotic now feels connected. And that connection, whether real or perceived, has completely changed how people see this entire situation. Because now, it's not just about individual actions. It's about a system, a dynamic, an environment that may have shaped everything people are only now starting to question. And that's where things become difficult. Because when a story reaches this point, there are no easy answers, only perspectives, only interpretations, only fragments of a bigger picture that no one fully has. Some will defend, some will deny, some will dig deeper than ever before. But no matter which side people choose, one thing is undeniable. This story has shifted, irreversibly, because once doubt is introduced into a narrative, it doesn't disappear. It grows, quietly at first, then all at once. And right now, it's growing fast, which is why this moment matters more than anything that came before it. Not because it confirms everything, but because it changes how everything is seen. And maybe That's the real impact of all of this. Not exposure, not confirmation, but perspective, a different lens, a deeper question. Because now, when people look back at everything, the clips, the arguments, the tension, they're not just seeing what happened, they're wondering why it happened. And that question, it doesn't have an easy answer, at least not yet. Because the truth, whatever it may be, is still sitting somewhere between what's been said and what hasn't, between what's shown and what's hidden. And until that line is fully crossed, this story remains unfinished, unresolved, and more importantly, open to interpretation, open to speculation, open to whatever comes next. Because if this is only the beginning, then what comes after this might change everything. And now the question isn't just what was said, it's what happens next. Because once a story like this reaches the surface, it doesn't go back down. It spreads, it evolves, and it forces people to pick a side. Some are already calling this a misunderstanding. Others are convinced this is only the beginning of something much deeper. But one thing is clear, silence is no longer controlling the narrative. What makes this even more intense is the timing. The energy has shifted, the reactions are louder, and the pressure, it's building, fast. Because when the public starts connecting dots, asking questions, and demanding clarity, the situation changes completely. And right now, people aren't just watching anymore, they're analyzing everything. Every word, every pause, every moment that didn't make sense before suddenly feels like it means something. So the real question is, what hasn't been said yet? Because if this is what comes out when the silence breaks just a little, imagine what happens if it breaks completely. Stay right here because this story is still unfolding in real time. And if anything new drops, anything at all, you already know we're going to break it down instantly. Drop your thoughts below, because this one is dividing everyone. Do you think this is being overblown, or is there something bigger hiding underneath all of this? Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and don't miss what comes next, because the next update, it might change everything.